Welcome back to Hardball. From his humble beginnings in rural Georgia to the highest office in the land, Jimmy Carter's story is as remarkable as it is unlikely. His victory in 1976 was the result of character and timing. His earnest campaign vow to never tell a lie struck a nerve with an electorate still reeling with distrust after Watergate. Yet, as Carter himself would point out, his 4 years as president represents a fraction of the very long career that he has shaped his outlook on politics. Now he's out with his 29th book, A Full Life, Reflections at 90. It's Carter's appraisal of his achievements over 9 decades, as well as the lessons he learned when he fell short. I'm joined right now by the author himself, former President Jimmy Carter. Mr. President, sir, I'm glad to have you on this show. Is it still possible? You write in your book the old story of how one guy can go out there with a lot of character and say, I'm Jimmy Carter, I'm running for president, with not a ton of money, retailing it person to person out there in Iowa. Can a person, man or woman, Democrat or Republican, still get elected the absolutely clean way without the big bucks and the super PACs?
No.
Well,
no,
that's a good
not at all.
answer.
Well, it's impossible now. I think the whole democratic process in America has been subverted by the massive influx of money brought about by the stupid ruling of the Citizens United. Yeah. And now I don't think anyone can hope to get the Democratic or Republican nomination unless they're able to raise, say, $200 million or more. When I ran against Gerald Ford, who was an incumbent president, he and I raised zero as far as contributions were concerned. We just used a $1 per person checkoff, and that was done until through the 2004 election. And it was after that that people began to cry for money, and donors were willing to give as an investment for the benefit, their own benefit in the future. And of course, the Supreme Court has been the main culprit, I think, in subverting this our democratic system in this way.
Let me ask you about that whole question. Well, first of all, let's get back to some of the ideas you've had. Now, I'm not sure, I didn't find this in the book, but I knew you believed in it, that we'd be better served, I'll get back to the book in a second, that we'd be better served with a 6-year term, that the process of running for your election is not healthy. A 6-year term, you can actually get done your program and then get out of there. Are you still to that belief, or have you changed?
Yes, I am. It's not a major burning issue with me, and I think it would be impossible almost to get any kind of constitutional amendment passed. But I think a 6-year term would be the best for our country.
Let me ask you about the Iranian debate. You write in a book about, of course, the thing we all went through, but nobody like you had to go through it, the Iranian hostage situation. Yes. And you did get them all home alive, all 50 people, which was quite an achievement. And they did screw you at the end by making sure they didn't get out till after you actually left office. I saw that. We all, well, I think you weren't the only one that remember that, Mr. President, but you had to pay the price politically. And now when you watch I think the good work that John Kerry's doing over in Vienna, how do you think your experiences redound to you during the night when you think, wait a minute, I went through that hell for a year. They're trying to deal with those same people, some of whom have been promoted into big positions, those so-called students?
Well, after the Shah was overthrown, what many people don't remember is that I quickly normalized diplomatic relations with the Ayatollah Khomeini and his revolutionary government. And it was my ambassadors to Tehran, to the revolutionary government, that were taken as hostage. And they had about 50 representatives of Iran here in Washington. So I think that now, and I've always thought, that it was better for the United States and Iran to keep communications open. And I believe that this present negotiation that might bring about a change in Iran's movement toward a nuclear weapon is very well advised. I pray that it will be successful. And I think if it is successful, it will be the best solution to this pending problem.
Let's go through the book again. You make some interesting things. I think I remember this, but you've certainly laid it out here. Ted Kennedy, the hero of health care all those years, the champion of health care, basically undercut your attempt to actually do it back when you were president.
That's correct. Yes, we had 6 committees that had responsibilities for that. All 6 of us worked with us in a very harmonious way to develop a comprehensive health program that would have been successful, it would have been paid for, it would have been almost applicable to every person in America. And up until the last week, all of those 6 committee chairmen were in favor of it. But at the last minute, Ted Kennedy decided he would go against it, and he did, and he was powerful enough and influential enough to kill the whole program. But I have to say that there was a major commitment of his on a political basis, because it was about that time that he decided to run for president for me. And I presume that he just didn't want to see me get a big advantage in the political polls by having a successful commitment.
There's another nugget in your book, which I'm not sure what it is, but you said that Jerry Ford, if reading of it, when you're talking about Alexander Haig, who you didn't think much of when he was head of NATO, you basically said that he had some kind of deal with Nixon through Haig to get Nixon to resign the presidency in '74 under the agreement that he would definitely get a pardon from Ford. How do you know that happened?
I don't know that it happened. I don't have any way to know that, and I didn't say that in the book, by the way. I don't know. I don't know what kind of arrangement Ford and Nixon had. If Ford said they didn't have it, I would completely agree with what he said, because I have absolute confidence that he's a truthful and honest man.
Well, you did say Alexander Haig played a key role in negotiating between President Nixon and Vice President Ford concerning a full pardon for Nixon if he would resign.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that Haig went back and forth between them, but whether or not Ford agreed to that, I do not know. But I think that's what Haig wanted. And I think, obviously, Haig later said that he was in charge of that and was involved in it. I trusted Ford. I can't say that I trusted Haig as much.
I noticed that came pretty clear in the book, and it's a hell of a book. Let me ask you something. You have to sing for your dinner tonight, Mr. President. What do you think of Hillary Clinton? Why haven't you endorsed her yet? She is the front runner.
I never have.
You endorse her tonight?
I never have endorsed a Democratic candidate early in the campaign or even much later. And I don't intend to endorse any particular Democratic candidate before the convention. I don't think there's much doubt that Hillary is going to get the nomination. And when she does, I'll be eager to support her.
Would you be eager to oppose Donald Trump if he were the Republican nominee?
I think Donald Trump gives you a lot to talk about on your program.
He sure does.
He contributes one thing to you and everybody else where I've been today. But, you know, I think what he said is absolutely wrong and obnoxious. I think he did it deliberately to titillate interest, which he succeeded in doing. I think there are probably maybe 10 or 15% of the people in the Republican Party that agree with what he said, and he's capitalizing on that. But I believe that's probably the limit to what he's going to get.
Okay, one last thing, because I'm personally curious, Mr. President. You know I'm a big fan of yours. What do you do to live till 90? The name of your book is A Full Life. More important than the name of the book is you are around at 90. Is it a good marriage? Is it not drinking? Is it not smoking? You're a good Baptist, so it may be one of those moral things, or is it something more athletic? What is it that has kept you so healthy mentally and physically?
I'd say the main thing is marrying the right woman, which I did 69 years ago today. This is my anniversary, as a matter of fact. And that's been the main.
Congratulations to you and Rosalind.
That's been the main achievement of my life, is marrying Rosalind. And so I'm very grateful for that. But Rosalind is a very wonderful dietitian. She's our cook at home. And so I eat the right things, and we take a lot of exercise, and we've been just lucky, I think, on our health care. Rosalind is also, she's 3 years younger than I am. She's 87, and she's also in good health, thank goodness for that. So we've been lucky, and we married the right person, perhaps, at least for ourselves, and we try to live the best we can.
Well, you know, some people write memoirs, they have nothing to talk about in their book, and you've written a memoir with a hell of a lot to talk about. The book's called A Full Life, Reflections at 90. Great cover picture there. Thank you, Mr. President Jimmy Carter. Thank you, sir, for coming on, and thank you for letting me work for you so much. I mean,
thank you for working for me, Chris. You're a good speechwriter, and
thank you.
Maybe not good enough in 1980, but thanks a lot.
The best I can do, Mr. President.